Trade Genius.
What's going on, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. We're going to give you guys a Bitcoin update. Our triple bottom failed, so we're going to talk about this drop now that we're into. Again, this is daily chart. We're into a fib zone. Okay, so this is the bullish fib zone. So we still can pull into this, right? And the party's still not over. So the levels that we're looking at now that this triple bottom has failed is, if you look back over here, you'll notice that we have a little area here where we had a pause in the action as we run up, and then we had that pullback into that area. That was that gap fill back in May on the CME gap fill, and then we moved higher. So this is an area of interest as we head lower. So the first area that we're going to be looking at as an area of potential bounce from this move down or targets for shorts is 7,100. And then if that doesn't hold up, I suspect we'll get a little bounce there, but if that doesn't hold up, then I think they're going to hunt this low here. This low was at 6,600. So to recap, we came into this area here after this triple bottom. We got a second moneymaker buy, and we actually started to break above the 200-day moving average, and then they slammed it back down. And then we got kind of a rare thing happened here where we have three moneymaker sells that fired off. Both of them saw follow, or all of them saw follow through. So that's pretty bearish, and I'm not going to really be looking for getting really long until I see another moneymaker fire here. The other thing is we're in this volume void, okay, so which we don't see another node until we get down to 5,200 or so. Okay, so this is an area where a lot of crazy movement can take place. One thing to note, guys, when we talk about the floor for Bitcoin and things like that, a lot of people will look at mining costs. Now, right now, mining costs, depending on where you look, the average is somewhere around $3,400. That's going to jump or double when the halving comes in May 2020. So now you're looking at, like a $6,800 floor forward looking. And so that number of 6,800 comes into play, I think, as things get lower. And I think you'll see Bitcoin hold. If we do dip into the 6,000s, I do think that area holds. But make no mistake, it's bearish. The pops are going to be sold. So from a daily standpoint, 7,100 and 60, even as low as the 6,600 low could be hunted. So I think that you have to look at Bitcoin's price action with those two areas in mind as potential targets, because losing this triple bottom, that was very bearish. That should have held, and so we have to be looking at every move up gets faded. Before we get more into the technicals, I will say this: when this move is over, when this bear move is over, you're likely going to see a daily candle similar to this. It's just a big candle, breaks above a lot of resistance, and that should get the party started. Now, keep in mind, we are getting closer to the end of the year, and typically at this part of the cycle before halving, it's very, very bullish going into, say, November, December, okay? So I do not expect this down move to continue through the rest of the year. We are going to find a bottom in here, and then this thing is going to turn up. But a big clue as to where the lower highs and lower lows are going to stop is a big daily bar like this. This is another technical we haven't visited in a while. This is the delta. So this basically measures whether or not people are bullish or bearish based on how the nearest contract on BitMEX futures contract is being priced. Right now it's bearish, okay? And we have a zero delta reading. So now we're starting to get into areas where when we get these bearish readings on that measurement between the future price and current actual spot price of Bitcoin, these levels are usually longer term areas where you can buy and should see gains from without waiting too long. Okay, so we are in that zone, but we just keep in mind that we do have some more downside risk. But I think if you're talking about between here at 7,400 and say lower at 6,800 in the grand scheme of things for holding into a longer term swing trade, it doesn't really matter much, but just keep in mind that we are now below zero on the delta, and that usually sees larger moves from those areas over time. If we look at the technicals on BitMEX, you're going to notice that a couple things. One is we are negative on the funding rate, and that's usually bullish because that means the herd is net short, and that can create a short squeeze. Now, obviously, we have to look at this support resistance area up here into the 7,900 zone. So again, a pop up into that is probably going to get shorted pretty hard. So I do think the fuel is here for a short squeeze. When the funding is discounted like this as well, that's going to put pressure on shorts if any kind of move starts getting up over the 7,500 mark. And then you can see a pretty quick squeeze back up into prior support. Okay, so 7,800, 7,900 in that area. You can see a quick move up there, a Bart-like move to counter this one, but then look for shorts to come in there and push this thing lower. All right, this is Bitcoin sentiment, and if we look here, the lows here on the sentiment, and this is taking mostly from social media, you'll see that we got pretty low here on this dump, similar to the levels that we saw back in October 17th, which basically more or less held those levels, and then you saw a bounce back up into prior support. So I think it's reasonable to think that we will see something similar. However, if we do see this sentiment indicator run back up here and up toward these 70 readings, okay, this is the levels here on the left. We get up in that 70 reading, bounces over likely, and that may coincide with that 7,800 level, and I would be looking to get short at that point. All right, guys, crypto fear and greed, we have a reading of 20 currently, so we're starting to get into that buyable, actionable area. We'll see what tomorrow's reading is. If this thing dips down to 16 or so, then that's a heads up. We could get a bounce coming in, but we are starting to get toward those levels that we do produce decent bounces of. But again, only looking to be about the 7,800 level right now, because I think those are going to get faded. One other thing to note on those levels, usually when we get the delta reading that says to go short like we're in, you're going to look at these two moving averages as well. So that's 7,600 area currently with the WMA 20, and that's dropping. And then the next level is up here at that 7,860 area on the WMA 65. So again, typically these levels will see some sort of resistance or rejection. And so if that first one does not reject or gets taken over around that 7,600 level, then the WMA 65 would be the next big area to short, and that also coincides with the previous resistance. So just keep that in mind on these sentiment bounces. Okay, and then big picture, guys, this is the cycle repeat graph. So if we basically what this does is this is basically projecting price based on the prior cycle, which I like a lot. This is from digitalleak.net. So you can go there and check out this graph yourself. But the cycle repeat, if you compared the cycles based on the price of where we were at the beginning of the year, and we play out the cycle, halving cycle again, we're looking at all-time highs of $283,622. And if you look at the current price, you'll notice that we've really just blasted any previous price action from the halving bear market exit. All right, so we are still doing much better than previous cycles, even with this pullback. And a lot of people have bought into this 40+% pullback. So, you know, anywhere in here still is looking really good as we grind higher into this pre-halving move. And then again, we'll probably coast through halving and then grind. That's when the real big moves start post-halving, okay? So just wanted to give you guys kind of step back, look at the big picture as well. And I think this thing does a really good job of framing where we are relative to previous price action in the halving cycles. All right, guys, well, that's it for this video. Please hit like and subscribe. Appreciate it. Appreciate the views. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.
Trade Genius.